Welcome to the meeting of the San Francisco Public Library Commission for May 20th, 2021. The time is 4:32. My name is Margot Schaub. I am the Library Commission Affairs Analyst. As an ongoing reminder, due to the COVID-19 health emergency and to protect library commissioners, staff, and the public, the San Francisco Public Main Library and the Correct Auditorium are closed. However, members will be participating in the meeting remotely. This precaution is taken pursuant to the statewide stay-at-home order, and all preceding and proceeding local, state, and federal orders, declarations, and directives. Commissioners will attend the meeting through video conference and participate in the meeting to the same extent as if they were physically present. Public comment will be available for each item on this agenda. Members of the public can observe the meeting using the Webex system by following the link in the library's event calendar or by calling local 1-415-655-0001 and entering the access code for this specific meeting. The access code for today's meeting is 187-080-3976. To make public comment when connected by phone, please raise your hand by dialing *3 when public comment is called to be added to the queue for the specific agenda item you intend to comment on. Individuals joining via Webex should click the raise hand button in the lower right-hand portion of the participant panel in order to be added to the queue. Best practices for all public commenters are to call from a quiet location, speak clearly and slowly, and turn down your television or radio. Each commenter will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. All public commenters will remain on mute until their line is open. Kenny Avia, our media services, will facilitate this meeting and assist in moderating public comment. Mr. Avia will call upon members of the public by name or by caller number to prompt each attendee who wishes to provide public comment. I will now commence with the roll call. Library commissioners in attendance are President Wardell Giarduzzi, Commissioners Lee, Ano, Wolf, and Dr. Lopez.
And Commissioner Mall.
Oh, thank you.
Madam President, I don't know if you're speaking right now, but if you are, you might be muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So thank you very much. Glad that you can hear me now. Hello and welcome to this meeting of the San Francisco Public Library Commission. It is May 20th, 2021. When the commission last met, we voted to acknowledge that we are on the Ramaytush Ohlone land by reading a land acknowledgement at the beginning of each meeting. And I will now read that statement. The San Francisco Public Library Commission acknowledges that we occupy the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. We recognize that the Ramaytush Ohlone understand the interconnectedness of all things and have maintained harmony with nature for millennia. We honor the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples for their enduring commitment to Wayap, Mother Earth. As the indigenous Ohlone peoples, as the indigenous protectors of this land, and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place, as well as for all peoples who reside in their traditional territory. We recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland. As uninvited guests, we affirm their sovereign rights as First Peoples and wish to pay our respects to the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush community. We recognize to respectfully honor Ramaytush peoples, we must embrace and collaborate meaningfully to record indigenous knowledge and how we care for San Francisco and all its people. I want to thank you, members of the public who are attending this meeting remotely. Now, if you have not done so already, all the materials for this meeting are available for download on the Library Commission page of the library's website, and that's at sfpl.org. We have a total of 5 agenda items today, so we are going to begin with item number 1 on the agenda and open it up for general public comment. Members of the public who wish to provide general public comment should raise your hands now so that you can be in order to be added to the queue. If you are using the Webex interface, click the raise hand button in the lower right-hand portion of the screen. If you've called into the Webex dial-in number at 1-415-655-0001, please press *3 to line up to speak.
Madam Chair, Operations is checking to see if there are any callers in the queue. If you have not already done so, please raise your hand in Webex or press *3 on your phone to be added to the queue. For those already on hold in the queue, please continue to wait until it is your turn to speak.
Madam President, there's 2 callers on the queue.
Thank you, Operations. Would you please begin allowing general public comment?
Caller NY, you have 3 minutes.
Did you say 2 minutes? I thought we have 3 minutes, and I don't know what NY is. You want to explain that to me, please?
That's just the signals, the letters that are next to your name, sir.
The letter that
You have
what?
3 minutes, Mr. Warfield.
Okay, so when do I start?
You can start now. We'll start the timer right now.
Thank you. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. We can be reached at libraryusers2004@yahoo.com. And for those who choose for various reasons or don't have easy access to a computer, we can also be reached by U.S. Postal Service at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. I give this information, which I don't usually in in-person meetings because the in-person meetings allow for those present to see each other, to hear each other, and if they wish to approach each other and perhaps exchange contact information for whatever reason, to talk about what they agree or disagree on and so on and so forth. That's not possible with these remote meetings. So the first thing I want to say is that it's great that the library finally, after so much time, more than a year, is open. And to think that I haven't set foot in a library, and neither has anybody else in San Francisco, unless they work there, in more than a year. So that was a lovely thing on May 3rd. Unfortunately, I certainly think that the library could have and should have been open sooner and would have a faster availability of all of its services in all of its locations. I would note that the library's service currently, as the library acknowledges, is very limited, but I think unnecessarily so. For example, the reference materials, things that do not circulate, which are often some of the most interesting and certainly some of the unique things the library has, are basically inaccessible as I understand it, although there may be some differences of opinion. Unfortunately, I was surprised when I came in on the afternoon of opening day how empty the place seemed. It was lovely to have lots of people welcoming one, but the place seemed pretty empty. There were empty computers and lots of floor space. The same thing happened early this afternoon when I was in, not many people showing up. And I'm wondering if that might be in part due to the library's complete, almost complete, ignoration of the folks that it has as users who are on the mailing list, because that's the way they've requested to be notified of library matters. And I'm on one of them. I'm one of those folks. I haven't gotten any notice of the library's opening, nor of any of the details of what the limitations are, what the hours are, and so on and so forth. And I think that's a very bad thing, especially considering the equity issues when you look at who has and who does not have easy access to computers.
Your 3 minutes
Thanks
are
very
up.
much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Operations, would you put the next commenter through?
Mr. Rivers, your 3 minutes to begin now.
Hello, Madam Chair and library staff. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you all so much for reopening the library. This is really, really exciting, and a lot of us are looking forward to this, myself included. I have been looking forward to reading many, many books, and I'm really, really excited about this. But my only question was, what was the timeline for the reopening of the Ocean View and Ingleside libraries? Because our community really, really wants to see them open, and we do have the bookmobile that comes out to the Lakeview OMI community, but we are really, really excited about seeing those two branches reopen pretty soon. So I would like to hear what the timeline, the reopening timeline plan for those. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment. Operations, are there any more callers in the queue?
Not at this minute, Madam President.
Let's just pause for a moment to just make sure there's not someone else who's trying to get on. Operations, is there any other caller in the queue?
No, there is not, Madam President. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Hearing that there's none, we're going to go ahead and end general comment at this time. And if you have your agenda in front of you, you can see that we're going to move on to our second item of our agenda today, which is a discussion on Summer Together. We had a great time today launching the Summer Together and the Summer Stride, which is our signature summer program. So excited about this. This is going to be a presentation and a discussion on the library's participation in the Summer Together initiative and the library signature Summer Stride program. The commission will have a discussion on this. We'll also have a public comment as well.
Thank you, Madam President, and good evening, Commissioners. Library staff is so excited to share a presentation regarding our role in the citywide Summer Together initiative and provide a preview of our signature Summer Stride program. I am so proud of the library's partnerships with the Department of Children, Youth, and Families and the Recreation and Parks Department on the Summer Together collaboration. And we're so honored to have a strong partnership with the Human Rights Commission as well to take our Summer Stride program to the next level this summer. We can't thank Human Rights Commission Director Cheryl Davis enough for her partnership and support in helping the library reach our underserved communities in San Francisco. And we're so grateful for her presence this evening, and you'll be able to hear from her directly a little later in the presentation. Next slide, please. So first, we're going to highlight the library's role in the Summer Together initiative. As you mentioned, Madam President, we had a lovely kickoff this morning, and it was wonderful to see you and Commissioner Ono there. I think for the public, we will first answer the question, what is Summer Together? As background, Summer Together has been characterized as the San Francisco Village supporting children, youth, and families. This initiative was born out of the recognition that over the last year, there's been tremendous learning loss for children and increasing gaps in inequity. Isolation and inactivity have become familiar states for too many children. And the Department of Children, Youth, and Families has taken the lead in working with the school district and bringing city and county partners like the library and recreation and parks together to offer a selection of free virtual and in-person programs for kids to reignite their love of learning this summer. Our Chief of Collections and Technical Services, Shelley Cocking, is taking the lead in the library's exciting piece of the Summer Together initiative, and she's here to shed more detail on the groundbreaking partnership. Shelley?
Thank you, Michael. As part of the Summer Together program, the library will help children build home libraries to foster and encourage the love of reading and ultimately improve their reading skills. This great addition to our Summer Stride program will allow us to offer 10 free books to every San Francisco Unified School District student from pre-K through 12th grade. Next slide, please. We received an additional $3 million in funding through DCYF and a donation from Crank Start. It's with this generous donation that we were able to purchase the books for the kids. Today, we launched our volunteer effort to bundle these books, and it was great to see all the people coming together to help the children of our city. Our shifts filled up quickly with both the public and staff offering to help bundle up the books. The book giveaway will start on June 14th and go through September 12th. Books will be available to pick up at all of our library locations throughout the summer. We will also be bringing them directly to the children by delivering them to the Summer Together summer camps and to other community partners. I'd like to take a moment to thank all the staff who helped make this possible. While this is a partnership between Collections and Technical Services and the Community Programs and Partnerships Department, these staff have worked really hard to coordinate this effort, but we couldn't have done this without the help of finance, and especially Walter and his team of delivery drivers who have been bringing things out to the Palace of Fine Arts where we've been bundling up the books. And we'll do a total of 500,000 books to give out 50,000 packages to kids. Next slide.
All right. Well, thank you, Shelley. This is going to be a literacy boosting moonshot. I'm really excited about it. And now I'd like to turn it over to our Youth Services Manager, Christy Estrovitz.
Good evening, Commissioners. Good evening, City Librarian. Thank you so much for including us in this agenda. I feel like I kind of miss the Corette right now and seeing your smiling faces and the warmth that you radiate for this program. So, well, I'm going to share some highlights with you, and then I'm really delighted to have our esteemed guest, Dr. Cheryl Davis, to join us to talk more deeply about our partnership together this summer. Summer Stride is our signature summer learning event, our campaign that we offer for our community. It's all ages, all abilities. And this year we are thinking a little bit differently and deeply about this. As you know, we've had a very unprecedented year. We've learned a lot. All of our programs have been remote. And we are thinking more deeply about the disparities within our communities and what the library can do and be as a resource and a beacon for literacy. So early this year, I reached out to our steadfast partners in summer learning, some of our champions at the city level, Maria Sue from DCYF, Cherise Dorsey from the who is the project manager for the community hubs, Jenny Lamb from the school district and also the mayor's liaison for education, and Director Davis, longtime champion in her role as the Human Rights Commission director, but also her work with Collective Impact of the Year and her signature Everybody Reads program, and had a very kind of a heart-to-heart about their perspectives and their feedback on our Summer Stride efforts, shared with them what we're thinking about this year, and really invited their input into what does the library need to know and do to better serve the Black and Brown youth of San Francisco during the summer. We got some really good feedback, and especially from Director Davis. So I really want to thank her publicly for informing this campaign and being a partner and doing this hand in hand. With that, Michelle Jeffers, my chief, joined me in that conversation, and we continue to have conversation with Director Davis strategically about what we could do together. We also reached out to our internal racial equity committee We really wanted to share what we were thinking, how we were thinking differently, but also invite their questions and their counsel on what we were doing and invite their ideas. So we had a very productive conversation with them and welcomed all of their questions, which they shared with us, and we took it back to our committee and had our committee review this and also bring it back to the individual work groups that contribute to this campaign, and seek out the questions that really would guide their work through this campaign. We know this is a start in doing things differently and intentionally to better serve and uplift our community. And we really thank our city partners as well as our internal racial equity committee led by Shauna Sherman and Alejandro Gallegos for their guidance. And we hope that this will be replicated in future summers and in future committees internally in San Francisco. Next slide, please. So here are our partners. You see some familiar organizations. So many of these organizations have really stepped up to serve the youth this summer, this school year, and we'll continue to do so hand in hand during the school year. And we have an exciting new partnership with Youth Works for our teen leaders. So next slide, please. Our artists, one of the highlights for this campaign has been our partnership with Chronicle Books. This is our 7th year of working with them to commission original art born out of an illustrated book. This year, we feel like the stars aligned to work with Kaylani Juanita. She is a Bay Area artist. She's getting her master's at Davis with design with a social justice lens on it. She won the Coretta Scott King Illustrator honor for Magnificent Homespun Brown just earlier this year, and we are so delighted that she said yes to our invitation. Tada is the book where the art is born from, and also from her lived experience here in San Francisco, studying illustration under the counsel of Lisa Brown, who is a big supporter of the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. And in fact, they will be in conversation later this summer. So thank you, Kaylani. And you can already see her art outside of the main library. Check it out the next time you're visiting the Grove Street entrance. It is big and gorgeous. Kaylani specifically chooses projects to celebrate and raise visibility of underrepresented communities. And with her, when she was creating this art, she was really thinking about the seminal work of Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop, which is all about how children need mirrors and doors and sliding glass doors to see themselves and see others and see beyond the world. So you'll see that in her art. So next slide, please. And here is a little preview of the art. We are doing multilingual multimedia campaign on all of our social channels, and also on our transits. We're bringing back those gorgeous transit shelters that you will see with inviting all to get together safely and re-experience their library as we reopen throughout this summer. Get involved, reading and learning and listening all counts towards your 20-hour goal to earn that coveted tote. Remember, you can't buy it. You can only earn it by participating in Summer Stride. We also forecast that people will be riding buses again. So we've invested some resources into 1,000 bus cards, which have trilingual messaging on it, inviting people to come back to their library. So you see that on the night bus. So I'm really excited about seeing this art around town and hope that you are too. Next slide, please. And next week, possibly this weekend, all SFUSD students, preschool to graduating seniors, will receive the activity tracker and the annual summer reading list in their mailbox. This has, we really wanted to make this as inviting and whimsical, really playing up Kaylani Juanita's art. And this year we really wanted to raise visibility of her as an artist, being a Black queer woman making art for this campaign, so that the youth and adults, of course, see themselves in her as a role model and an inspiration, as well as her art. On Tuesday, SFUSD students received an email with their Scholar card, remember their library card digits, and an invitation to use that library card to track online via Beanstack. So that's our second year using a virtual module for tracking, but they'll also have this gorgeous tracker that they can start using. Next slide, please. Did mention this tracker, it's like our one and done. This is what will be available at all of our reopening libraries, our bookmobiles, and to-go sites as well. That will be available probably late next week and definitely by our start date on June 1st. So I mentioned YouthWorks. This year, thanks to our new CFO and Heather and Michelle Jeffers really working behind the scenes to leverage our work order with YouthWorks to pay the teen interns that we work with in our Yale program. This is our 5th year of our Yale leadership cohort. It will be virtual again, just like last year, working with Ileana Pulu, our youth development coordinator, and a team of teen librarians and youth librarians that are guiding this. They'll be meeting bi-weekly, working on projects, getting to know library resources. One of the projects groups will be working with STEM, much like last year, and with a nature component. And another one will be working with a digital art project, highlighting the work of our poet city laureate, Tongo Eisen Martin. So very excited about this. They will be paid this summer. They will have a working wage through our YouthWorks contract or work order, sorry, and they will also have an opportunity to earn the $500 scholarship deposit. So we're very excited and optimistic about how we can leverage these resources for future teen leadership opportunities. Next slide, please. And of course, we have lots of programs. We are bringing back virtual programs. We had some very deep conversations about what would feel safe for our staff, what would feel safe for our community, and really decided that virtual programs is the optimal way to deliver enrichment programs this summer. So we have a BIPOC Kidlit series. So BIPOC is Black, Indigenous, and People of Color, showcasing really the stars of children's literature and YA literature this summer in a virtual series happening weekly. We're bringing back our Nature Boost, which honestly hasn't stopped. We've continued this as a monthly series this year because it's been so well received by our community and so lovingly produced with our nature art partners, the National Park Service, Presidio Trust, and the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy. And it wouldn't be summer without the Alphabet Rockers. So they're coming back. Pardon me, there's a lot to say about this. Concerts, they're doing a special Pride concert for us later in June. And we're just so thrilled that even they're 2-time Grammy nominated, they still say yes to public libraries and give our community such shine. And we are bringing back our award-winning STEM Challenger Series, Challenge Yourself Series. This is led by Ileana Pulu and Joseph Ferreira from our bookmobile team. And this is going to be such a fun series, a weekly broadcast on our YouTube channel, and then a live STEM lab with our librarians the next day, so you can get all your questions answered. So we're delighted to offer this series. Everything will pretty much be on YouTube, so it'll be easy access if you have access to Wi-Fi and YouTube, and you can choose to log in anytime and see these events at your pleasure. Next slide, please. And can't forget about the adults. I'm just going to say I will not do this justice for all the work that has gone into this amazing book lover series for our adult community. There's going to be at least one author event every single week during the summer, featuring our poet laureate. Just look at all these covers. There's something for everyone in this series. And we are so jazzed about this. So thank you, Anissa and her team for leading this series. You see local art authors, you see award-winning authors, and everything in between. Just feast your eyes on these book covers and know that you have access to these authors because of the San Francisco Public Library. Next slide, please. And this is our BIPOC Kidlit series. These are the stars that are coming to our virtual stage. You know, we couldn't really offer this in normal times because these authors are from around the world and they are busy. They're busy writers, they're busy family people, they are busy life. So we are thrilled that each of them said a big yes to SFPL and joining us on our virtual stage. I want to give a shout out to Christina Mitra, who has led the team to develop this series in such a thoughtful way. And you're going to be blown away by the conversations that are happening every single week during the summer. These events will be available on our YouTube for a limited time throughout the summer, but I invite you to catch these programs and find time. Each program will include an engagement component for the youth so they feel connected and feel like they are meeting these authors and seeing their work. And thanks to our partnership with Director Davis, our team has been at Mobile Outreach Services making kits, summer learning kits for 2,500 of the most at-risk impacted youth of San Francisco who have been affected by the COVID and are experiencing learning loss and need an extra boost. So we have purchased, thanks to our collections development team, we have selected and purchased one book from each of these creators, two from Kaylani Juanita, our signature artist of the summer, and are putting together kits. These have the books. They also have a sketchbook, a colored pencil set, a glue stick, a scissor, a bookmark, a magnet. It's really just a bespoke kit to inspire them to be creative and dive in deep with these books and get to know these authors. And the icing on the cake for this, next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. Is our work with Director Davis. Early on in our conversations, Christina Mitra joined me in a conversation with Director Davis to say, how do you do this? You have such an impactful program known as Everybody Reads. It has a literacy guide, it includes books, it goes deep into the community. And we partnered in many different ways. We shared some graphics, but we really went to her to say, teach us how to do this. Sarah, how can we think differently about this? We have this resources, we want to do this virtual series. And she graciously took time to really think with us. And she offered her time, her expertise, and her gift of literacy activities. She also taught us a big lesson as she starts with the books. We were starting with the authors, thinking about like programmers, the authors, but she really helped us be very grounded in our approach and said, I start with the books. So we worked with her to vet the books. Christina led the team of children's librarians who did a very deep dive into selecting these books. It's hard to narrow down so many books into just 10 for this weekly series. And together with Director Davis's words, we were able to create this guide, this literacy guide that you will get a copy of. We're putting inside this, the literacy kit going out to the children before the end of school. And we have reserved the bulk of it to go to Director Davis and her outreach into the community, which we know goes very deep and very far. So with that, I would like to invite Director Davis to just come and be with me and talk us through this guide and share a little bit about your approach to your signature event, Everybody Reads, and speak about your partnership with us. We are truly honored to do this with you.
Thank you so much, Christy. I have to say I'm probably more excited than the librarians and the racial equity team that put this together. I just want to thank you and our city librarian and Michelle and Christina Mitra, especially for really being very intentional, for having this conversation, for being willing to explore a little bit more. I think that so often people talk about education really as this as the equalizer of some sort, but we really don't think about it in the broadest sense of like making learning fun or engaging or just the very simple act of accessing a book. So I am really grateful. My background is that of a teacher. I actually started as a kindergarten teacher and have carried that that lens and with me everywhere I go. So I know Dr. Wardell Giraduzzi knows that I'm always distributing books and forcing people to look at books. And I think the other thing for us to really understand is the simplicity of children's books really get to the heart of the message and the heart of reading and the core of it. So the library has been amazing. Michael, I just can't thank you enough. Every time I've asked for books, you all have been at the ready. And so when you all came for this, you think that I'm doing you a favor, but you have given me the ability to go back to my joy of teaching without having to actually be in a classroom. So I just want to thank you for this ability to share. The books that were selected are amazing. For those who don't know, the San Francisco Human Rights Commission also houses the Office of Racial Equity. And again, to have this kind of intentionality happening at the library and being able to think about how we do this, how we really ground the conversation around racial equity, but beyond that, even intersectionality, the connectivity around language or geographic region where folks might live, or even just the experiences of Indigenous people and that evolution. So I think that there's a lot to be said and that people should not think of this as merely children's books, because I do think that there's so much to be gained from children's books, and the authors have done an amazing job of making this work really easy. So if we go to the next slide, you know, I think, and I don't know if you want to say anything about this, Christy, but we're really happy and grateful to be able to partner this year with the mayor's office to be able to have this introductory letter. Did you want to say anything, Christy? I know that was, you know, something.
Oh, we're just what you said. We're honored to have her standing in solidarity with us for students, and really think this letter. I hope you'll have a chance to read it. Just read all the words. It's so powerful to hear the whole city is supporting the youth and wishing them to have a very successful summer. Like, no youth should be left behind, and we feel like this program is helping pick up the gaps and fill in the gaps.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to really make note of is that Mayor Breed has been very intentional about supporting young people and understanding that this is not just the work of teachers or parents, but that we are a collective and that we all have a responsibility to really educate and inform, as demonstrated with what Shelley and Michael shared earlier around Summer Together. So this, again, is just another way for us to show that this idea of human rights and of literacy and of learning and reading is not just the job of the library, but it is the job of all of us. So I'm really grateful for that. Next slide. So this is one of the books that we have this time around, and it's about a young lady who is practicing making bow and doing this with her family and trying to figure out how she can make the perfect bow. And there's something, you know, I just kept going back over this book and rereading it because it really is about like who decides what's perfect, who decides what's the right size or the right look, or what even is the right taste or the favorite thing for you. And this story, as I read that, it just resonated with me in so many different ways. And so I'm always thinking when we go through these books, what's the message? What is it that we want to drill down on it? But what also is the thing that we want to elevate? And so I think one of the things is that she talks about she could eat bao all day, like it's her favorite thing to eat. What are the things that other folks enjoy? What's your favorite menu? What's your favorite item? So again, having the opportunity for folks to have a reflection to celebrate themselves. I think when we go through this process, when we have these conversations, there are two things that I really want us to focus on. One is self-reflection, right? How you fit into this, how you value yourself, how you validate yourself, and how it's okay to be unique and different, but at the same time, in a larger community perspective, to understand how you fit into that context and to make sure that you are not judging in a way that you would not want to be judged. So being able to do an individual activity, but that when you put it together jointly, or that it sparks conversation, or it becomes something that you can share out. One of the things that a lot of our partners that we work with that are serving young people who may feel othered or may not feel like they belong, is that we need to do more of these type of things where we celebrate what makes someone unique and different, and that it doesn't have to be even the majority. If you're the only one, if you are the one that likes that, then you are the one that likes that, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so normalizing the idea of being different as okay is part of the conversation. And it's a way to do this without actually trying to beat someone over the head with it, but that it really is about, like, how do we have these conversations? How do we celebrate the uniqueness? And then when there's some similarity, celebrate that as well. So this is the way, and this is the thinking behind as we go through these activities. How do we celebrate what the story is in that, but also provide space for folks to see themselves in the story, even if what we're talking about is not exactly directly tied to their experience. Next slide. I immediately went to, when we saw this book, there were all these words about, I just went to flashcards. I was like, I want to remember what these words are, or I want to do memory cards. And so this was about a story about Indigenous people and the language, and how do we keep and maintain that oral tradition? And so I think that's another piece of this that we really need to think about, is that within each of our communities, there is a story, there is a history, there is a heritage, there's a culture that runs the risk, if somebody does not tell the story, if they do not write it down, and if someone doesn't not just tell the story and write it down, but if someone doesn't learn it and share it, for it to be lost. And so I really appreciated this story, because at the back of the book, they share some of the words and the vocabulary. And again, how do we make sure that we don't lose that, right? And that we celebrate and we recognize, and that there is no superior language, that we just realize that part of it is a lost language, and that if we were to use it, it would just be as equally important. And so I think that's another piece of this work, is how do we celebrate the history and the heritage of others, and value it in the same way. Next slide. So this, I have to again thank the librarians for this book. I had met before Zetta Elliott, and she's an independent author and really, publishes her own books. But this story resonated in such a way that I think so many people could connect with. After the movements of the summer and the conversations we're having around anti-hate, and how do we battle that, and how do we within ourselves find and own the different emotions that we're having. And so one of it was this idea with this one, how do we pull out the words, because there were so many powerful words in this book, but also thinking about the words and how they tell a story. And I want to actually, I was looking at this book, and there's a line in here that says, there is still hope inside of me, a promise deep down inside of me that I will use my life to help others, and they will help me in return, right? So that is a message that I think we could all hope that resonates with folks, that will set in, and that we will think about, like, how we can be helped, but also how do we help others? And so this for me was, how do we have people have a moment of reflection and not just kind of go through the book, but go back through the book and look for the words, figure out what it is that message is, what it is that resonates with them, but then also how can they use those words as we continue on. Next slide. So I was ecstatic I did not realize initially that not only was it the book of Jacqueline Woodson, but that Jacqueline Woodson is going to be one of the featured authors. For folks who have not had the opportunity, she does adult and children's books and young adults. I would say go and read something, Jacqueline Woodson. When I read this book, again, this idea that it really is a children's book, but it speaks to all of us. And I all of a sudden was transported back. And so this labyrinth of like connecting the dots was for me this idea of the journey, and this idea that the day you begin, and like we may start somewhere and we may end up in this squiggly line of life, and then end up on the other side of it. And there was so much in this book that resonated and reminded me of summers of the past as a teacher and as a student, where you come back from summer and someone may say, "What did you do this summer?" And everyone else will talk about the trips that they took or the amazing things that they did that may make someone who spent their summer at home babysitting feel like they don't want to share that. Or it may make someone feel different when you say, "What's that you have for your lunch?" And your nose is a little bit scrunched up and you're like, "What is that smell? Is that your lunch?" Just all of these things that we think about in terms of our journey. And this book for me was, yes, we go through all these winding turns, but on the other side of it, we are still ourselves and we should be okay with who we are and celebrate that. And so that's part of where the labyrinth came from. But it's just this idea that the day we begin, we really don't know where we're going to end up. But everything that happens all in between, the messiness of it all, contributes to who we are, and we shouldn't be ashamed of that. And so how do we create a space where young people, adults, and all of us alike can celebrate who we are, be okay with who we are, and feel like we are welcomed as we are? So all of this for me has been, how do we get this message across, and how do we begin to really support young people who may feel othered, who, and a lot of times with the programs that are like, how do I support my young people to feel valued and validated, and for their lived experiences to be as celebrated as someone who may in some ways have more than them financially, but not have quite as rich a life as they may have. So I'm just grateful to have been a small part of this big effort. And I do hope, as Christy said, that we can continue to partner and collaborate. And I look forward to seeing and hearing from the community and the young people that we get to share this with. But I know folks are super excited. I want to thank Christina and Christy and the other librarians who joined us for some of those community workshops. So for folks know that we don't just give the books out. That used to be something we did, and people would say we don't know what to do with the books. So that's why we started doing the activity guides. And then we also do workshops to go through each of the activities and extender activities that folks can do. So super excited, super grateful. Again, thank you, Michael, Christy, Christina, Michelle, everyone, for this amazing opportunity. And I look forward to doing more with you.
Director Davis, we are so grateful to be on this journey with you and to learn from you and to build our practice so we can go deeper in our community and really reach the kids and have them see themselves in our library programs and the books that we're providing to them, and back in our libraries when we can all gather again. So thank you for being part of this, and thank you for your significant contributions to this project. Commissioners, I can't wait for you to see and feel this guide. It is high quality, and I'm just so proud that we're able to do this together. And if you have a chance to attend a community workshop led by Director Davis, do it. It will make your day. It is just filled with sunshine, and you do these little literacy exercises. It's such great modeling, and the participants are totally into it. They're so excited about the books, and there's such high respect for Director Davis and the work that she's doing and the voice that she has for our community. So thank you. I think there are 2 more slides. One, just another forecast of an activity that you'll see in the guide. Next slide, please. That's it. Oh, and this is what you'll see on the exterior of our branches very, very soon. San Francisco loves libraries, and we love San Francisco. So with that, thank you, commissioners, for your attention. Thank you, Director Davis, for joining us. And back to you, President.
Well, my heart is so full, and we have so much more to do. And I know the commissioners will want to make comments to both you and Director Davis. So don't go anywhere, because we're going to go to general comment on this item. Okay, so operations. Are there any commenters in the queue?
Not yet, Madam President.
Let's just wait a moment. They may have been enthralled with this report, so they're trying to get in. Let's see who gets in. Give them a chance to dial in.
We have one public comment. Madam
Okay,
President.
great. Thank you. Could you put that commenter through?
User 6, you have 3 minutes.
Is that me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. We can be reached at libraryusers2004@yahoo.com and by mail at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117. First of all, I always enjoy hearing about and participating at times in the Summer Stride. There's a whole sense of festive as well as educational that I associate with that. I'm not sure how the program this year is going to replace or substitute for one of the things that I think is valuable about it, and that is library and librarian interaction with those who are participating or are interested in participating and maybe don't know how it works and so on and so forth. I see my timer has stopped, so I'd appreciate if you could give me a 30-second warning. Is that possible?
Keep going, Peter.
Can I have a 30-second warning, please?
Please continue with your public comment.
I guess that's a no. So in any case, this is nice to hear. Just so you know, you've talked a lot about equity. You've talked about reaching the underserved. So let me tell you, generally, I know that the library is sending weekly emails about all kinds of activities and things, and I'm sure that you have sent out stuff about the Summer Stride program. So let me tell you everything that I have learned about this as a library user and a library patron and card holder, but as somebody who does not have easy access to email and gets his information from the library via U.S. Postal Service. And I'll tell you everything that I've heard about this, what sounds like a very good program, again. So that's how I've heard about this, how much I've heard in the 13 months or so that the library has been closed since COVID started, maybe 14 months. We've gotten 2 letters. And I don't see why there shouldn't be for the 20,000 or maybe 50,000 people that are on the mailing list. It's not clear to me. I've heard both numbers. They should get information about this too. This is basic. Let me say that I've mentioned the City and County of San Francisco Digital Equity Strategic Plan, which in its appendices shows that there's great inequity in home user access to the internet. Whites on top, blacks on the bottom, Latins and Asians in the middle. Poorer people at the very bottom, only 59% of people making $25,000 or less. Over 200,000, something like 98% or 100%. And then older folks as well are greatly less access to the internet.
Thank you.
So that would be very helpful for you to do that as a minimum.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your comment. Operations. Are there any other persons in the queue?
Yes, there is, Madam President.
Great. Would you put that commenter through, please?
Mrs. Dean, your 3 minutes begin now.
It's Naima Dean, not Mrs. yet. Should I be so lucky?
Sorry, Naima.
Or maybe I am luckier than I know. Who knows? I just wanted to say thank you very much for making sure that we're able to provide a summer program, a summer stride of some nature for our youth and for our families and for our adults and seniors as well. It is sad that we can't meet in person. We all want to for programs and whatnot. It's actually something I serve on a board for an art festival, and you know, a neighboring art festival canceled just today, and we're still trying to decide whether or not we can put it up. But the safety of our friends and family, while simultaneously providing services as best as we can is important. I've seen the services that we've been able to provide by holding up community hubs all this time, and I'm thankful that we're able to transition to opening and seeing people in the ways that we are able in providing these summer programs. I've also watched staff do whatever they can while serving and holding up SFPL to go to make these programs happen and make sure that we are able to provide. And so I'm once again really proud of SFPL for being able to serve the public in that way. And the presentation and the things that are in there look pretty good. I was excited to see that. I've been busy, so I haven't paid as much of attention. So it was nice to really see all the color and vibrance. And and then of course, thank you to Cheryl Davis for always lifting up our communities in need in San Francisco, Western Addition. Woot woot. Thank you all. Have a good weekend.
Thank you so much, Naima. Operations, are there any other callers in the queue?
Not at this time, Madam President.
Okay, hearing that there's no further requests for comment, public comment is now closed. So we're going to turn it over to our commissioners for discussion. And we have both Ms. Estrovitz, Christy, as well as Director Davis. And I see I'm going to call on Commissioner Wolf first to make any comments that you have. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Connie.
Hi. Well, there's no question that Summerfest is truly a love fest. And I'm just always just awestruck by what you're able to do. And Christy, I just want to thank you and your team. A year ago, you were pivoting in ways that were quite extraordinary, and you were able to never lose sight of what it is Summerfest is all about and what you try to do for students and their families and the community across the Bay, across the San Francisco region. And so you did such a great job last year, and then to see kind of seamlessly just kind of keep forging ahead without recognizing all the obstacles, it just plowing through them. And so you make it look easy and you make it look so fantastic, and it is. And I just want to acknowledge that we really recognize the care and thoughtfulness, and every decision that you make is one that is informed and intentional, and it's really wonderful to see. And the partnership with Dr. Davis and her team really elevates things and deepens things in such important ways, and it's a great model for how departments can work together for the good of our students and children of the community. So it really is something that we should be so proud of, and I know we are, and it really is a model. And then to build on the fact that we have this whole new book program of 500,000 books going out to the students, I feel like we are once again, because of the leadership of the staff, because of the community support, San Francisco Public Library is leading the way across the country for demonstrating what can be done during these most extraordinary times to make sure students feel connected to learning and community and ideas. So this is really a moment to be proud of what San Francisco Public Library staff has achieved during the most difficult moments in its history and in our community. So thank you for really inspiring us and never losing sight of why we do what we do. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Wolf. Beautiful comments. Commissioner Lopez, you unmute yourself.
Yes. I just want to say I wish I was a kid and in the public school system right now. I would love to attend all the programs. Christy and Dr. Davis, thank you so much. The presentation was very thorough, and it had, it got me so excited. I do want to acknowledge the fact that that you have put so much thought into that. It's not just about giving books to children, it's the activities and and also the participation. So I really appreciate that, because I know that people might perceive it as, oh, well, we're giving books, but the reality is that there's more to that. And engaging with the writers, engaging with with other people, that's what makes a difference. So I appreciate both of you, Christy and Dr. Davis, for all the work, and everyone who has contributed to this amazing program. I'm just thrilled. I mean, it shows a lot of commitment, and it really speaks to our commitment to social justice. So thank you. That it was more of a thank you and an acknowledgement, because it's amazing.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Lopez. I'm surveying the hands. I don't see any other commissioner hands up at this time. So I'm just going to go ahead and make my comments. First of all, Christy, you have been such an amazing thought partner in all this work, and your heart is just so good. And the team that you work with, you just do good work. You're good people who do good work. What can you say? There's really not much more than that. And it just keeps getting better and better. And I just want to lift up my friend and colleague, Dr. Cheryl Davis, the curriculum. This literacy guide is a curriculum that takes the beautiful words of these authors and, what they put forth, and then takes it to a whole nother level. So maybe I'll ask Dr. Davis a question. Tell us a little bit about, what inspires you as an educator to want to take good books, like you begin with a book, and then take it a step further so that the children and the community and perhaps even their parents can engage in it. What inspires you to do that, Cheryl?
Thank you so very much. I think, there's a lot of layers to this, but when I really think about it, first and foremost, a couple of things that were mentioned even from the commenters from the public comment, just around the outreach and engagement. Like, I take nothing for granted in my life experiences. And I was very fortunate to grow up in a very literature-rich environment, right? To have books and to really use books in some ways as an escape, but also not, my mom and I joked that she thought I knew how to read before I started school because I had memorized Chicken Soup with Rice, right? Like, I knew everything. So she thought I was reading until one day I was reading without the book. And she said, oh, she's memorized it, right? But that is what reading is, right? Mm-hmm. Enjoying something and learning it so much. So I've been really fortunate in that way. And so our outreach has been targeting, like, engaging with folks, being on the ground, connecting with people that may not be online, that may not be coming to the library, but wanting to give them that library experience. And that goes a little bit further for me because when I started my career as a teacher, I worked in private school. And so there was so many rich resources and just the books, the library, the access to the library, the ability to see just the diversity of books and to have this range. And I just realized, like, I had grown up with a level of privilege, not that I was rich, but that I was rich in books and rich in exposure to literature. Like, I still remember, the poems from Maya Angelou and other places that, Langston Hughes, What Happens to a Dream Deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Like, all of those pieces that I learned that were embedded in my culture that made me a stronger learner and reader, not because I was smarter, but because I had these extra tools. And so it really has become for me, based on my lived experience, but then based on the work that I did in private school and then my time at USF as a student, to really understand these gaps and to understand these gaps, that it really is about access and not just the access, but how things are presented to you. Right? The way that the library does learning is not punitive. You're not penalized, right? Like, it's not a punishment to read. It's a privilege, right? It's an honor. And so how we frame that, how we build that out is really important. And so, I appreciate that the library is saying, if folks don't come to us, we're going to go to them, and that we're going to find new ways to encourage folks to do the reading tracker and to get exposed to these books and to engage. And I'm super excited about even just the ability to have the authors, because that again is something that I learned in private school, right? That was the first time I had actually in all my life, when I worked in private school, met an author of a book, right? And that these young students in kindergarten were meeting authors. And when we did that in partnership with the library, when Jacqueline Woodson first came out for me, I remember a young man who was African-American living in public housing, and he was so excited to meet Jacqueline Woodson. And then he came home and he told his mom that he met this Black woman who had written a book. And she told me months later that he had changed and said he was going to be an author when he grew up. And that once, a couple times, they had had some shooting outside their home, and he had taken his younger siblings, gotten under the cover, and was reading this Jacqueline Woodson book to his siblings. And so those are the things, like the power of books, that at that moment I was like, we've got to get more books and we've got to get more exposure. So that really is the movement for me. It's like the lived experience, both as a child, but also as a teacher. And then in this moment in time when people really do need a book to escape or to offer hope or to figure out like how to manage their feelings. So
yeah, that's so beautiful. I see that we have a Commissioner Lee, John Lee. If you would unmute yourself, John.
Yes, I just want to add my wishful thinking with one part of the program. All the good things has already been mentioned, and that is the internship. And the wishful thinking is that it will open up more opportunities for future librarians.
Well, I know Christy can speak to what's happening there, but I will say as a part of Mayor Breed's Opportunities for All, we also have a cohort of young people who will be leading about 12 young people, which will be supporting Everybody Reads. And we had a group last year that did this as well. And they actually were helping young folks figure out how to navigate and be able to get onto the library's website and onto YouTube to watch the authors. They were helping with the schools to get the books to them and to catalog and to track that. So I will say, at least from our part and the work that we're doing with Mayor Breed's Opportunities for All, we are hoping to build that pipeline to librarians. And I know City Librarian Michael Lambert, we've had this conversation as well. And so we've had some success with having young folks come through some of the positions there. So hopefully we'll continue to build that pipeline and get some more folks from the community into that process.
Marvelous. Thank you.
Commissioner Lee, we always think about that. Librarians are always thinking about how do we recruit our future. So we hope that our teen leaders will see themselves and see the library as a career path for them. And I know that Ileana Pulu is already looking forward to reporting back the outcomes and hopefully inviting a couple of the team leaders to present about their work and their experience at the library. So thank you.
That would be marvelous.
I forgot, I flashed the slide that had our partners, but I do want to acknowledge the tremendous support of the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. The virtual program series is completely funded by the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library, as is so many components of the summer learning campaign. So I just want to thank them for their longstanding support for Summer Stride. We could not do this without their financial and publicity support. So thank you, friends.
Well, we're going to come to a close on this item, and thank you. That's the Executive Director of Friends of the San Francisco Public Library is Marie Chapella. She was with us this morning as we launched the SF Together SF, 500,000 books getting bundled together to go out to all the children and adolescents and teens of San Francisco. Every single one of them will get 10 books. This has been a beautiful presentation. I want to thank you again, Christy Estrovitz and the team, along with Dr. Cheryl Davis. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. So we are going to move on to item number 3 of our agenda, which is the City Librarians Report. And this is an opportunity for our City Librarian Lambert to report on recent library activities as well as make announcement.
Thank you, President Wardell. We have a number of reports this evening, but first up, I'd like to provide a status update on our efforts to resume in-person services and reopen our library system. Next slide, please. You may recall last month we provided a comprehensive overview of our reopening plans. Next slide. And since that time, our mayor, London Breed, hosted a press conference last month out in front of the main library. Many of you were there, and Mayor Breed announced plans to reopen the main and some branches this month. It was wonderful to hear the mayor speak to the progress we've made as a city and how the reopening of city services would begin with the public library system. And I really appreciated all of your presence at that event, as well as the presence of City Administrator Carmen Chu. Next slide, please. So our main library did in fact reopen successfully for limited in-person services on Monday, May 3rd. It was an emotional morning captured by the San Francisco Chronicle journalist Peter Hartlaub, who was present that morning. His viral tweet captured library staff clapping for the patrons entering the atrium for the first time in over a year. And our reopening even made the national ABC Nightly News with David Muir that evening. We have more details on the main library's reopening plans, and I'd like to introduce our chief of the main library, Tom Fortin, and then we'll hear from our chief of branches, Kathy Del Neo. Tom?
Thank you, Michael. And I would want to just throw in there, my mother is in Fargo, North Dakota, and she saw that in the national news and she was a little surprised. So it really was a milestone of a day to reopen the main library. Thank you, Michael. I am Tom Fortin, Chief of the Main Library, and I'm happy to share a few more details about our phased reopening at the main to restoring in-person services, which began on Monday, May 10th. Let me just see what slide. Okay, we're on the right slide. First, the photos on this slide prompt me to thank all the staff at Main that worked hard to get to our reopening day. Main library staff, security, engineering, IT, custodial, finance, HR, collections, public affairs, COB, chief of branches. Honestly, reaching this milestone took cooperation from the entire SFPL team, and we are grateful to everyone who pitched in. Featured in the upper left picture and at the CERC desk are Kenneth and Linda. In the lower left is the team at the Info Services desk, Benson, Valentine, Kevin, and Natalie. And on the right, Kevin is helping one of our first patrons who entered on May 3rd, who told me while she was in line that she was excited to come to the library that morning because it was her first chance in 14 months to get on a computer and email her family in her home country. Please note the patron quote on the slide. I think it is quite fitting for the occasion, and it was shared with me by Shauna, a librarian who was helping patrons on the first floor that morning. Next slide, please. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not. Okay, thanks. Another first day quote is from Alex, one of our first patrons, and the quote says it all and shares further insight into how essential the library truly is to people's lives, indeed, their best lives. Next slide. And staff at Main hit another milestone 1 week later with the reopening of the Fisher Children's Center on the second floor on May 10th. The photo shows Kathy and Christine and an urban alchemy practitioner who helped to welcome our first families back to the Main. The first day was a bit slow, but it gave us some time to shake out the service plan a bit and make adjustments as needed. You may note that the family pictured on the right are wearing masks as required, and they also have their bounce time or their time limit on this in the space noted on the stickers that we give patrons at entering to help note their 1 hour time limit in our spaces. Now with 2 browse and bound spaces, Maine's current occupancy limit is 55, and we have a total of 14 public computers available. Next slide, please. This slide details some of the stats from the first week, showing about 400 to 450 patrons per day. I should also take this time to remind you that the Maine also continues to staff and operate our to-go holds pickup service at the Larkin entrance, which adds about 200 to 250 additional patrons each day. Not on this slide, but updated stats from the current week show a small growth in browse and bounce at Maine to 450 to 500 patrons a day on the first floor, and between 75 and 100 patrons a day in the children's room. Most recently, yesterday, May 19th, Maine had 549 browse and bounce patrons on the first floor and 74 in the children's library. Next slide. This detailed slide helps us to understand patron visitorship during specific hours of our service day. We can pretty clearly see that activity seems to be focused in the morning and early afternoon for now. Next slide. Looking forward, Maine staff are now getting ready for the next milestone of reopening, and that is restoring access to the upper floors, getting us even closer to what was our pre-pandemic service model. In that effort, we are holding 5 planning meetings just this week and more next week, gathering input from staff of all classifications to help make sure that we are covering all the bases and that we are as ready as we can be to welcome patrons throughout the building. As you would expect, opening the upper floors at the Main is conditional upon elevator access. And at the moment, our public elevators are undergoing a much needed overhaul and refurbishment, with the expectation that 2 elevators will soon be available on Monday, June 14th. So we're using that date for our tentative next reopening phase. When we enter this phase, we will cease our to-go operations at Larkin, bring our holds inside, and expand our building occupancy limit to 750, which is 50% of our capacity. At this occupancy level, which is well above our typical pre-pandemic occupancy, we will no longer need to monitor access at Grove or Larkin entrances and will be able to welcome patrons mostly as we did pre-pandemic. And with our planned occupancy limit of up to 750, we shouldn't need to enforce a time limit or even track the number of patrons entering because, again, our typical occupancy or attendance pre-pandemic was well below that number. And in fact, I just got some information today from our research strategy and analytics department that typically our occupancy is around 450 at busy times of the day. Also, we will maintain our current temporary 7-day-a-week in-person public service schedule Monday through Saturday, 10 to 5:30 and 12 to 5:30 on Sundays. And working under the consultation of Nancy Terranova, the library's occupational safety and health officer at the Department of Public Health, we will have safety restrictions still in place for this next phase. For instance, we will enforce masking and social distancing. We will have sneeze guard barriers at the service desks. We will have PPE available throughout the public spaces. We will limit reference interactions to less than 5 minutes and will continue to do a phone or email handoff for in-depth reference. And very important for some of our patrons, we can finally make reference materials available again. And that's another big milestone. And of course, patrons will be able to browse circulating collections on every floor. Also, we will add back reader seating in this next phase, though in a limited way. For example, we will allow seating for 1 adult at round reading tables and up to 2 seats, socially distanced, at the rectangular reading tables. We will also add more public computers, keeping in mind social distancing, which will allow us to expand the time limit on computer reservations and possibly to offer walk-up computer access without reservations. We are currently tallying up which computers can be available socially distanced, and that number will help to inform the approach we decide to implement. And though we won't be offering in-person programming or booking meeting rooms in this next phase, once access to all the floors is reestablished, the patron experience will begin to feel more like pre-COVID times. In all, it's been a long 14 months, and we are looking forward to taking this next step in June and welcoming patrons back to the Main. And with more news on library reopenings, I will now turn it over to COB, Chief of Branches, Kathy Delneo. Next slide, please.
Thanks so much, Tom, and congratulations to you and the team at the main library. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Kathy Delneo. I'm the Chief of Branches for the San Francisco Public Library. I'm pleased to share that this past Monday, our Chinatown branch reopened to the community, launching Browse and Bounce service. The branch is now open to the public Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. The Chinatown team, led by branch managers Eileen Kuo and Chao Huang, and by circulation supervisor Jamie Wong, did a great job of preparing their two-floor branch for service. It was such a joy to see the library patrons come into the branch to browse, use the computer, and get assistance in person from our staff at the Chinatown branch. On the first day of Browse and Bounce service, the Chinatown branch welcomed 302 socially distant and masked visitors to their branch. Next slide, please. This past Tuesday, May 18th, our Mission Bay branch also resumed in-person service to the public. The Mission Bay branch is now open Tuesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Branch manager Melanie McCallum and circulation supervisor Soji Sujisaki led the Mission Bay team in setting up Browse and Bounce service at Mission Bay, which welcomed 307 patrons on their first day of service. At the Mission Bay branch, some of our patrons were so little they had never been to the library before. We welcomed a lot of families with strollers that morning. I'm so very proud of the supervisors and staff at both the Chinatown and Mission Bay branches for leading the way as we restore in-person services in San Francisco's neighborhood branch libraries. Next slide, please. As we've been sharing over the past many months, the branch division has been steadily expanding our SFPL to go services throughout the city. With the addition of Portola, Potrero, and West Portal branches in April, we are now providing library service at 14 branch libraries. Next slide. We plan to further expand our SFPL to go front door holds pickup service at the Bernal Heights, Golden Gate Valley, Ingleside, North Beach, Sunset, and Western Addition branches in June. We plan to bring SFPL to go to the Noe Valley, Parkside, and Presidio branches in July. Next slide, please. We also have plans to expand our in-person Browse and Bounce service in the coming months. We've been meeting weekly with our supervisors at the Excelsior, Ortega, Richmond, and Visitation Valley branches, which will open for Browse and Bounce service in June. We plan to expand this service further to the Bayview, Bernal Heights, Eureka Valley, Glen Park, Ocean View, and Western Addition branches in July, and then to bring Browse and Bounce to all branches in the fall. As we have shared throughout the reopening process, our plans are all dependent upon staffing. I want to say a thank you to all of the staff in the branches and to my team in the Chief of Branches office who have been providing services and planning our next steps. I also want to thank all of the staff in the library who have helped us with reopening: facilities, custodial, engineering, security, IT, public affairs, finance, community programs and partnerships, the main staff, and the city librarian's office. It takes a lot of work to open up each of our branches, and we've had a great team supporting us along the way. And now I'd like to turn it back to our city librarian, who will review some of the measurable outcomes of these services with you.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Tom. I do want to just emphasize Kathy's point that reopening these libraries and launching more locations for in-person services is dependent on staffing capacity. I know all of our residents want their branch to reopen and reopen for in-person services. We're going to have to continue to phase SFPL to go first at some of our locations and then build up to in-person. In-person services in our branches requires more staffing capacity than the SFPL to go service model. And we still currently have over 100 staff deployed as disaster service workers, and we're still actively working to recruit. We have 139 position vacancies that have been largely vacant for the past year. So it's going to take us some time to transition all of our staff back from disaster service work and fill our vacancies. So I appreciate our public's patience and understanding as we navigate this transition. As we look at the current slide, you'll see a gradual uptick in the bar graph. As we've opened more sites, we've seen a steady increase in the number of visits. And we have had over 300,000 visitors to date. Next slide, please. So we're also seeing a gradual uptick in circulation activity with over 100,000 items checked out each month for the last couple of months. Next slide, please. And that's going to conclude our reopening presentation. And now I'd like to introduce our next presenters. Next slide, please. Christina Mitra and Anissa Malady. They are librarians in our community programs and partnerships division. And this evening they have a report on AAPI month and our programming highlights. Christina and Anissa, take it away.
Thank you so much, City Librarian, Madam President, Commissioners, fellow colleagues, and community members. My name is Christina Mitra, and I'm the Family Engagement Coordinator for San Francisco Public Library. I've been part of the team leading virtual programs this past year, and I'm very pleased to be here with you to speak specifically about youth AAPI programs taking place this May. As we know, the AAPI community has experienced an exponential increase in violence during this past period, which is why we are especially proud to uplift and celebrate the diversity of cultures, voices, and stories that come from Asia, the Pacific Islands, and their communities here in the U.S. As the daughter of a Filipino immigrant, this month's cultural focus is particularly gratifying to me. Next slide, please. As a youth programmer, I'm happy to share with you here 4 programs that are centered on the AAPI book creators. And as you heard earlier in our presentation about Summer Stride, the books are so fabulous and our virtual programming is just getting better and better, highlighting and taking advantage of the access that we have to authors in this virtual space. So you see here Oliver Chin, Tony Robles, Carl Angel, Kristen Mai Jiang, and Rafe Salazar and Don Aguilio. While each of them deserves certainly their own focus, I will point your attention to 2 particularly successful programs that we've had. We tried an earlier start time with Kristen Mai Jiang's program, which is featuring her debut children's book, Ginger and Chrysanthemum. And this was in response to input from an SFUSD teacher who let us know, I love your programs that are happening in the afternoon, but if you start them earlier, my class will have a better chance of attending, and classes in general at SFUSD. And we definitely saw that and tried that with this program. And we had a very boisterous and very curious elementary school class that was able to ask author Kristen Mai Jiang all about her journey about becoming an author. And just this past week's program with Rafe Salazar and Don Aguilio, they are comic artists, writers, and creators of a graphic novel, which is actually available for free, called Clan of Saints Bay. And it spotlights the movers and shakers of the Soma Pilipinas community. Well, they garnered tons of engagement from their audience who oohed and awed during the live drawing session. So it's been a year for us, about over a year getting into virtual programming. And I have to say that we have found our groove about how to outreach and engage with students and patrons virtually in a really successful way. Next slide, please. We kicked off AAPI month with a very special Kamishibai Japanese storytelling program, which you can see in your upper left. These were presenters that zoomed in all the way from Japan. They were actually previously scheduled to visit the Western Edition branch in May 2020, but of course, that program was canceled because of COVID. And lo and behold, a year later, the wonders of technology allowed them to come back to do a virtual program with us. It was very special for them and for us. Just earlier today, going to your upper right, we heard from Elizabeth Yang. She's the founder of Hmong Women Take Over the World, in a wonderful conversation with Linda Calhoun, who's the founder of Career Girls. a fabulous website that surveys the careers of over 700 women and really tries to highlight the diversity of opportunity that's available to young women. And this conversation is available on YouTube, and it's all about the cultural pride and resiliency of Hmong people. And next week, I hope that you'll join us for two very special programs of the Pacific Islander community. First, a virtual performance by the Halau Ha'a Ke'a o Konohi, and a presentation by Pie Fest, a local nonprofit that fosters connections between Pacific Islanders and STEM. And finally, right there in the middle, you won't want to miss our virtual K-pop dance class with Lydia Chan. She's coming to us from San Francisco-based Ray Studios, and she'll be here on Saturday, May 29th at 1 p.m. And that's an example of just the possibility that we've really experienced during this time of virtual programming. This idea was born from one of our fabulous teen librarians, Connie Lynn, over at North Beach, who said, K-pop is so popular, I think teens would love to have this. And so, lo and behold, we reached out and said, well, maybe there is someone doing virtual K-pop dance classes, and Ray Studios here in San Francisco in the Tender Knob area is. And so these are some of our youth programs that we have going on, and we hope that you'll join us. And even if you can't, you can catch the recordings of these on our YouTube page. I would now like to welcome Anissa Melody to speak about adult programs for AAPI. Take it away, Anissa.
Thank you, Christina. And gosh, youth services, you're always so inspirational and set a high bar for our adults. And I want to say my name's Anissa. If you don't know me by now, you can catch me on YouTube almost every night. Lots of programs. And I want to, can we go to the next slide, Kenny? Thank you. I want to thank the commissioners for inviting us here today. And hopefully you caught some of our programs. I want to give us an extra shout out to Teresa Ono for being our favorite Instagram fan. We appreciate all that love you give us on Instagram. So yeah, it's already like mid-May, so hopefully you have caught some of the great programs that we've had, and it has become full circle from when we went into shelter in place. I remember last year scrambling. I had so many amazing programs booked for our branches and locations, and I was bummed, but we pulled it together, and we had a few AAPI programs last year, but this year we brought it completely. So, including I was able to support a few branches doing programs, so that's a first, and a couple floors doing programming. So getting out of the role of programming and back into my role of supporting other people doing programming. So I loved that, making that happen. And that included a program from Eureka Valley, two programs from Eureka Valley, pardon me, and one from our third floor, the wonderful Abe, who brought us Bujet Tan and Cajo Baldissimo for Tresse, and it was amazing. Again, those silver linings of shelter in place. Bujet joined us from Amsterdam, and Cajo joined us from the Philippines. So the joy of doing these online programs is we get to bring some amazing folks in. And then EVA also kicked us off with San Francisco's own Richie Underberger doing a great Asian rock and roll history lesson, and it was so fun. Some other highlights that I was really happy to bring about was May 2nd, we hosted Dr. Russell Lowe, and I fit him in my community program category, which is your everyday community member bringing their own story to the people. And it was just, he was such a pro and such a beautiful story and beautiful photographs. And he does have a book out, and now he's on my list of you got to come back anytime you want. And of course, we had author Alki Joshi, and a partnership which we also just developed this round is with the Kearney Street Workshop and Muriel Luong. We celebrated the launch of her new book. That was on May 5th, and she brought all of her poet friends. It was a very lovely celebration. And of course, also mixed with tragedy with the recent uptick in hate crimes happening in our community, which is terrible, and that it definitely is a thread in what we've been experiencing as far as programming, but as far as our programmers too. So I'm so happy to be able to celebrate and honor more than, kind of delve into the hate. Let's go to the next slide. All right, and then we partnered with the Asian Art Museum, who we are now going to have 6 programs with. And we kicked it off with talking about reflections of Islam, so art from Islam. And we got a great reception on that, emails about how much people enjoyed it and the partnership. And so we're looking forward to doing 6 more of those. And now we've continued our mystery writer panel series, which I don't know if you know about CPP. We really focus on the Cultural Awareness Month, so Black History Month, Latin, I want to say Latinx, we don't know what to call it all the time, Latin American History Month. So we have now started being able to do a mystery panel for almost every single one. And I think we'll continue on. Coming up in June, we'll have a Pride edition of mystery panels. But we were able to bring Mia Manasala and Gigi Pandian to celebrate Mia's new book, Adobo, Arsenic and Adobo. There is a niche of cozy cuisine mysteries. Who knew? And just yesterday, we hosted our NPS partnership, which, again, these programs have just been so personal. And this one was amazing. 3 park rangers talking about their identity and their place in the natural world and what it's like to be Asian American and a park ranger. And it was just really inspirational and personal, and I loved it. And a good thing about all these programs is, again, most of them are on our YouTube, so we're archiving just a really interesting time in history, and people are really opening up, and I love it. So the last 3 couple programs we have coming up, if you don't follow Chinatown Pretty on Instagram, you definitely need to. The best and most stylish seniors from 6 different Chinatowns across America. And this is a partnership with Chronicle Books. And they will be here next week on May 25th. And we tied in our On the Same Page, which is our bi-monthly read, where we encourage all of San Francisco to read the same book. And we have selected author, journalist Vanessa Hua for her book, River of Stars, which sets in San Francisco's Chinatown. And then we have a couple performances coming up, Claire Hugh and a Japanese, it's not on here, I apologize, a Japanese Kyoto player who our media services department filmed at the Correct, and then we'll play it live and have a discussion with the musicians. And big shout out to media services. I watched the video. It looks awesome. I think, in person is great, but the close-ups and the different angles they were able to get, there's just no way as an audience member in the Correct that you would be able to feel that close to what this person was doing with their instrument. So we have a lot coming up, and you should definitely stick around for next week and come to some of these programs that we have. And yeah, summer is next. Thank you.
Thank you, Anissa, and thank you, Christy, for all your hard work. The entire team. What a lineup. Happy Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. And before we move to our next presenter, for the record, Margot, I was remiss in not pointing this out earlier, but we have perfect attendance on our Library Commission now. Commissioner Pete Wong joined us during our first agenda item, and I was remiss in pointing that out. But at this time, I will introduce our next presenter. Her name is Kate Epler. She is the manager of the Bridge at Maine, and she has an update on Tech Week. Kate?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. There is so much great stuff happening at the library right now. I will be brief so as to not overwhelm you with more great stuff. But I'm here tonight because last week was the library's 4th annual Tech Week. We've been doing this event since 2017. We had to take the year off last year, but we came back strong for 2021. To produce SF Tech Week, the library comes together with a range of organizations, community partners from all over, to offer opportunities for technology, learning, and exploration. The goal of the week is to meet people where they are, to help them start to get connected, to demystify technology, and to help people build the skills they need to reach their goals. COVID has highlighted the full spectrum of the digital divide. Many of us suffered from lack of access, and even people who were already connected were forced to quickly adapt to a world that had gone even further online. So even though circumstances this year were still not ideal, we felt it was important to offer Tech Week again. Can I have the next slide, please? So working in partnership with many different organizations, library staff, and the city's Office of Digital Equity, we developed an event with several different facets. We harnessed the power of some of our community partners to provide tailored one-on-one help that started weeks in advance of the event. St. Anthony's Tenderloin Tech Lab offered in-person office hours for a number of topics, including how to join an event on Zoom. Felton Institute's Tech Squad offered one-on-one help in English, Cantonese, and Mandarin. The Bridge at Maine, my department, launched a Tech Week hotline for general questions, tech troubleshooting, and to help disseminate information about low-cost internet, free devices, and the new federal broadband subsidy. And the local nonprofit Community Tech Network made some videos in English and Russian showing how people can connect their mobile device to Wi-Fi. And then, of course, there were classes, workshops, and other events. This year, our events were largely virtual on Zoom, and more than 2,500 people attended 37 sessions on everything from web browser basics to web design. Some highlights include a tour of Chinatown alleyways that had been recreated in Minecraft, presented by teen volunteers from the Chinatown Community Development Center and co-sponsored with SFPL's AAPI month. Sessions in English, Spanish, and Chinese on how to access free books, magazines, and videos through the library. Digital wellness advice for families offered in both Spanish and English by the nonprofit Common Sense, because it has been quite a year. The Electronic Frontier Foundation taught about online privacy and security. Self-help for the elderly taught in Cantonese about how to use the city's online affordable housing platform, and so many more offerings. And then to finish up the week, we offered a class about Zoom, on Zoom, called Power Zooming, where people got a chance to practice their new skills. So that was really fun. Some of our offerings throughout the week were also live streamed to YouTube to eliminate the need for pre-registration and to make events easier for more people to attend. We promoted Tech Week on Muni bus cards, newspaper ads, flyers distributed by our partners and by SFPL to-go locations, and of course, email marketing. Can I have the next slide, please? So here is a photo from one of our events, Web Resources for 50+, which was presented by the SF Tech Council. These are people who agreed to stay late after class and take a picture for you all. I got almost everybody's camera on, pretty close. This year's attendance number of 2,500 exceeded our attendance for last Tech Week in 2019. In addition, as of this afternoon, the recordings of the Tech Week sessions that we posted online have been viewed 987 times. We asked our attendees to take a survey in Spanish, English, or Chinese, and 90% of respondents said that they felt more comfortable with technology after attending Tech Week. 88% said that they plan to use what they learned. And we also learned that 46% of our attendees were 65 and over, and almost 10% were 75 and up. And this is good news because we know the digital divide disproportionately affects older adults. So in conclusion, we learned a lot from Tech Week this year, and I think it was a success despite the COVID challenges. We look forward to applying some of what we learned, taking feedback from our many partners, and using it all to shape next year's event. I'm so grateful to all of our partners, to the Bridge staff, to the library staff who made all of this possible. So thanks so much for having me, and I'm around to take any questions if they come up.
Outstanding work, Kate. Thank you for your leadership. And that concludes the City Librarians Report.
Thank you so much. There's so much there, but we're going to come back to you. So don't go anywhere, anybody that just spoke. We're going to go into our our public comment on this item right now. And so we're going to go over to operations, and operations, let us know if there's anyone in the queue.
Madam President, there is one commenter in the queue.
Thank you. Would you put the commenter through?
User 6, you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. It's Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. Perhaps I'll start with the reopening plan. And the first thing to be said is, of course, we are glad that the library has plans for reopening and is doing an ongoing effort of reopening and so on and so forth. When we have comments or criticisms of particular aspects, that's all we're criticizing. We're not saying that the whole thing is a mess or awful or bad. We're talking about whatever we're talking about, and we certainly value libraries. We take a lot of time and effort with reviewing and looking and so on and so forth. It's disappointing that the library seems so slow in opening compared, for example, with other libraries. In looking at the SFPL to go, it looked like July 2021 didn't include all the branches. There were a few branches left that are not spoken to, evidently. With respect to the branch reopenings, I counted for Browse and Bounce, I counted through July, a total of 11. I may be off by 1 or 2, but that's the total. And then fall, undifferentiated, says that's when all branches will be open. Well, when is the full reopening going to happen for Browse and Bounce, and particularly the full reopening of all services? The library still painfully lacks a lot of services and a lot of stuff that normally people can expect, including, for example, newspapers, magazines, and any reference material that often is some of the unique material and some of the best material that the library has available, still beyond reach. Also, I'd like to see the comparison not just to nothing, but to what used to be the case. And I remember the main library used to boast of 5,000 visitors a day. Where are the comparisons, and what is the plan for bringing that level of service back? With respect to Tech Week, I'm very disappointed, as frankly I have often been, for its rah-rah to tech, and as though it's a sales pitch for tech. In the printed program, I found a single program that talked about anything negative about tech, and that was one program from EFF, Electronic Frontier Foundation, and the rest, nothing at all. Then there were some very serious privacy issues, and that is from one of the partners that presumably is providing something for teens. There was a whole series of questions that were mandatory to be answered, very intrusive. What's your ethnicity, your race? What gender do you identify? How did you hear about us? What high school do you attend? When do you graduate? Do your parents know about this? And so on. Thank you.
Thank you. Operations, are there any other callers in the queue?
Yes, Madam President. Ellen Egbert, your 3 minutes are beginning.
Thank you.
Very much. My name is Ellen Egbert. I've been a library user for what feels like about 1 million years. But I want to talk about the reopening a little bit. I was disappointed to see that although our public schools are apparently going to be open this fall for in-person learning, that we're not going to have even Browse and Bounce available throughout the system. And so many of our students come to the library to study because they don't have opportunities to study at home for one reason or another. And I hope that perhaps something can be done to provide space for students to do studying that is beyond Browse and Bounce, because Browse and Bounce doesn't permit the seating that kids need when they're sitting down to do their homework. And I'm just kind of concerned that our library staff is being preempted by the city for other purposes when we need them for our school children. Thank you.
Thank you. Operations, are there any other callers in the queue?
Yes, Madam President, there's one more caller, user 13. Your 3 minutes begin now.
Hello, we can go ahead.
Hi there. Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, this is Naima again, and I had a couple of comments. One, I wanted to thank the city librarian, Michael Lambert, for acknowledging that there may be, that we have to move into our opening a little bit slow based on the staff and recalling staff. I'm envious of all my besties who were lucky enough to have worked long enough in the system to be able to retire. But in their absence, you know, we need to make sure we get new people in their place and get them up and running. Also, so thank you for acknowledging that time. Also, we mentioned AAPI month and trauma for our Asian American communities that we serve and are in our makeup of employees. Just as we have many Black employees, and we're approaching the anniversary of George Floyd's murder this coming Tuesday, May 25th. We also are currently undergoing major trauma in Palestine, and our children and families are suffering there. And our Latinx community are still on hold at our borders in inhumane ways. And so we need to acknowledge that all of us have family connected to these situations as we continue to function as norm. I do want to say thank you also, while that's it, to San Francisco Public Library, Anissa, and oh my God, I'm blanking on her name right now. In any event, for keeping our artists and performers working during this time that it is challenging to find work at all. San Francisco Public Library is highly reliant on these performers, and our community truly love them. So thank you very much for keeping the arts and literature and knowledge alive in the ways that we can. And I'm thankful to hear that the bridge that Tech actually made it out to our seniors, because I know there must have been a few of our Western Edition crew that are diehards that come to our classes when we are able to provide them. Thank you all, and have a good weekend. Thanks for the time.
Thank you so much for your comment. Operations, are there any further callers in the queue?
There are no callers in the queue, Madam President.
Okay. Hearing that there's none, we're going to close public comment on this item now. So this is a discussion item for the commissioners. You have a city librarian report. It was robust. You have 3 staff members that gave their individual areas. And if you have any follow-up comments and or questions for any of them, now is the time to do so. Well, you know what that means. That means that you were so good. Oh, no, here goes Commissioner Ono. Commissioner Ono is going to tell you something that I know is going to really uplift you. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted. Thank you very much, President Wardell. I just want to thank SFPL and all the presenters today. As always, this is the best part of all of our meetings, and you guys all do an excellent job. And I'm so glad that the opening is proceeding very nicely, And I love all of the AAPI events. And as Anisha pointed out, I do love everything about SFPL. That's why I always do Instagram. And just keep up the good work. I know it's really hard and it's been really difficult, but we're here for you. So please continue to support the city, and all of our love to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Ono. Commissioner Ono was out there this morning bundling the books. Commissioner Wong, Vice President Wong.
Thank you. First of all, I'm so sorry for being late. Thank you for letting me join partway through. Doubling down on everything that Commissioner Ono said, I think I just want to repeat to everyone in the library community that all of the good work that is being done now is really a culmination of all the good input that has happened so consistently throughout the last year plus, right? This has been such a challenging time for the entire ecosystem. The entire system was just strained by so many dimensions. And so I think we're only able to get here and have such a strong result today if we were able to do it so strongly, so consistently over the last year. So we continue to support everyone involved. Thank you so much. You're doing all the work, and we're so proud of you. And we're eternally grateful that you've stayed strong through this entire time. So we're almost there, and we're seeing a lot of our patrons so thrilled to have the library back in their lives, and at least in this form. So keep on going. We're with you all the way.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Wong. Well, I'm going to just make my comments that the AAPI programming is wonderful. It's off the charts. The diversity, because we know the Asian diaspora is deep and wide and depth and breadth. It's very diverse. And the library has picked that diversity among the AAPI community within its programs. And I can imagine how difficult it is to do that when there's just so much, first of all, so much just talent, but also you want to ensure that the community, first of all, sees themselves, particularly members of the AAPI community, they see themselves in the programming, right? But you also then want to help elevate and teach everyone about that, what I call that diversity within the AAPI community. And I saw that very much in the programming. And I know because of my work, that's not an easy thing to do. So I just wanted to lift you all up. Christina, Anissa, all of you, that I know it took a lot of time and planning and care to bring those artists and those leaders within their own area to make them available to the whole San Francisco community, as well as everyone who accesses SFPL. We know the work that you do goes far beyond the city and county of San Francisco, right? Particularly during these COVID times. People are dipping in and checking out SFPL and seeing all the wonderful programs that's happening here. And that's a good thing, I think. So I don't see any of my other commissioners' hands up. And so I'm going to go ahead.
Madam President,
yes,
if I may, I just want to honor one of the public commenters, Ellen Egbert. She is a longtime member of our Council of Neighborhood Libraries, and I just want to thank her for her longtime patronage and also for her advocacy for the library. And I hear you, Ellen, and I just want to reassure you that we are going to get your neighborhood library in Bernal Heights reopened. It's going to launch for SFPL To Go service in June. We're hoping to convert that to our Browse and Bounce in July. We are currently limited by the public health order. We're in the yellow tier still, and we're working our way up to restoring some seating in our libraries. And it is our goal to have all of our neighborhood libraries reopened for in-person service with some level of seating, if not full seating, by this fall. And we hope to do that, around the same time as the SFUSD academic year launching again in the fall. So please bear with us, and I appreciate your patience as we get staffed up and we prepare for resuming in-person services at more locations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone, all the callers that call in to give your feedback and input to help us all just to do better for our community. So with that, we're going to bring this particular librarian's report item to a close. And we are going to move on to the fourth item of our agenda tonight, which is the approval of the minutes of April 15th, the last time we met. And so this is an item that requires an action on behalf of the commission. But before we do that, we're going to go into our public comment on this item. Operations. Alert us when there is a caller in the queue.
Madam President, there's currently one caller in the queue.
Great. Would you put the caller through, please?
Caller user 6, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, I was unmuting my newly muted line since I thought I had raised my hand. So I wasn't able to hear what this item is. Is this the minutes?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. Just want you to know that the muting of hands up for those of us on the phone was done without any notice about that in the procedures, and neither did there seem to be any reason, since I don't believe that I can talk just any time when I have requested to be in the queue. And then the talk from the system, which you don't hear, but we hear it in the phone when we're making comment, is in contention with what you're saying, and it was not possible to hear what you were saying about this item and so on. I wanted to make some comments about what seems to be generally not bad minutes and an improvement over the past, but there seems to be a tendency to bowdlerize, to make everything milder, and as though you want to, do international diplomacy and cool down the heat. On general public comment, what I said last time was that the library has made appalling claims to be the most democratic of institutions, and I said that's not true. I said nobody elects, as you've shown here, the commission is appointed by the mayor, and nobody elected the city librarian. Well, the mayor appointed the city librarian, but I said it was an appalling claim. Caller number 12 is referenced in the explanatory document, in the public comment on the Ramatouche-Ohlone resolution, rather. What is caller number 12? That's your internal code for something, but this isn't somebody who identified him or herself as caller number 12. This is somebody who didn't give a name, and that's what it should say, anonymous or someone who didn't give their name. Otherwise, people will be wondering, what's that? Thank you for noting the Mrs. Mueller public comment attempts that failed. I'd like it to be clearer that I was thanking the commission for pausing so that those who might have been knocked out or not clear on their status in the queue can get a chance to get in. And I wanted to say that on the comments on item 3, I specifically said evening hours are not present, and not that I was asking about it. They're not present. Nothing after 5:30 is open.
Thank you.
That should be clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Operations, are there any other commenters in the queue?
Madam President, currently there are no commenters in the queue.
Okay, let's just pause for a moment just to see if anyone else is there. Okay, hearing that there's no other commenters in the queue, general comment is closed. Public comment is closed on this item. Is there, so we're here for our actionable item for the minutes. Is there a commissioner who would like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, this is what we're going to do. I see two commissioners. Commissioner Connie Wolf, would you like to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
And Commissioner Lopez, would you like to make a second it?
I would like to second the motion.
Okay, we have both a motion by Commissioner Wolf. I'm making my little note here. And then we have a second by Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Okay, so I'm going to do a roll call for the rest of you. So wait till I call your name and you'll say aye or no when I call your name. Vice President Huang?
Aye.
Commissioner Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner Mall? Is Commissioner Mall here? I'm just going to go while I'm waiting. Okay, Commissioner Ono?
Aye.
Okay, and I'm just going to look at it very quickly just to make sure that she may have.
Aye.
There you go, Commissioner Mall. Okay, so we have just for the record that all the commissioners are here. And for myself is an aye as well. And so the motion passes unanimously. So we're going to move on to our final item on our agenda, which is adjournment. And we'll move now into our final public comment. Operations, is there anyone in the queue?
Madam President, currently there's one person in the queue.
Okay, thank you very much. Would you put the commenter through?
User number 6, your 3 minutes begin now.
This is Peter Warfield again, Library Users Association Executive Director. We can be reached at libraryusers2004@yahoo.com and at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. And we repeat this because in a real meeting, there'd be an opportunity for anybody to approach anybody else if they liked and comment, talk, maybe exchange contact information. It's become, I guess, a tradition that I say you should not adjourn until you have insisted that that the Library Commission do what other commissions have done and what it itself has done in the past, and that is insist that there be an item, particularly at the end, where you get a chance to say what sorts of issues or items you would like on future agendas. The library had that for many years in the past, and many bodies have that currently. That gives you a chance to say what you would like, and the public a chance to say yay, nay, or to augment it in some fashion and make it perhaps more useful, more expansive, more specific, and so on. Your way of doing public comment is a particular issue, and it's difficult, particularly to follow, for people to follow what's going on when you don't have page numbers again and again. I've spoken about that in past meetings. This time there were no page numbers on any of the handouts, except a random one here or there that didn't really make sense in the context. And that makes it very difficult for anybody to follow, particularly if one is on the phone. And I would remind you that when I go online for a recording of the meetings of the Library Commission, there's only audio available online. And that means nobody else can follow what you're talking about specifically when you're going through a presentation, a particular presentation, that you don't give document names, you talk about next page. Nobody is saying even what's on the page specifically or what the page number is, since there isn't any. I think there's a very serious issue with hours. I've raised it many times. Not a single evening anywhere in the system ever. You've completely destroyed evening hours. The latest anybody is open till 5:30. Limited reference is a big problem. The limitations on the library service are a big problem. The training with respect to the printing, stunningly, everybody seems to agree that the librarians were not trained appropriately. And privacy issues that I started to raise with the kids' Tech Week are very serious, and you should have a privacy reviewer audit. And I think those would be good future topics. Thank you.
Thank you. Operations, are there any other commenters in the queue?
Madam President, currently there are no commenters in the queue.
Hearing that there's none, we will call bring a close to our final public comment. And so, commissioners, first of all, we've had a fabulous meeting, and we've heard some really phenomenal reports from the city librarian and his leadership and team members, as well as the community. And just so that, you know, I want to thank you all for not only bearing witness to it, but providing the feedback to the community and to the SFPL staff, so that they know how much we care and how much we regard the work that they do. And so with that, can I get a commissioner to make a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Okay, that was Commissioner Mall. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, then that was Commissioner Vice President Huang, and I'm going to call the remaining commissioners. When I call you by name, say aye or no. Commissioner Lee.
Aye.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Ono.
Aye.
And Commissioner Wolf.
Aye.
And myself, Commissioner Wardell Garaduzzi, says aye. That is everyone's in favor and passes unanimously. And this meeting is now adjourned. I want to thank you all again. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the public that has hung in there. It was only 5 items, but it was a long meeting, but I think it was a worthwhile meeting to hear that good content. We'll see you all again in the virtual world. We're on our last days in the virtual world. We're going to be back inside of Correct sometime soon, hopefully late summer. Can't wait.